Welcome to the West Block, Politics, People and Players. If United Conservative Party leader Jason Kenney wins the election in Alberta on Tuesday, he promises to lower the industrial emitter penalty and scrap a cap on oil sands emissions. He would join 4 other provinces with Conservative governments that have opted out of carbon pricing. This, while study after study says the impacts of climate change are coming faster than even the experts expected. But not all Conservatives want less action. Mark Cameron, a former policy advisor to Stephen Harper, is now the Executive Director of Canadians for Clean Prosperity. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Eric.
One Conservative government after another is fighting carbon pricing, such as a gasoline tax increase. You're a Conservative. What is it you're getting that some of your maybe former colleagues that you think are not getting?
Well, I think it's basic market economics, that if you want less of something, you put a higher price on it. If you want more of something, you lower the price. And so if we want less carbon emissions, we increase the price of carbon emissions, and we reduce taxes on what we want more of, like labor and savings.
So, I mean, you're not alone. I mean, Preston Manning, Jim Dinning, some very big names in the Conservative movement and Conservative Party over time have said that they are on board for more action. It sounds like a pretty simple argument to be made. Recent reports have said all this is happening with climate change. I'm being drawn to it. It's hard not to get involved with the science of it and say, my gosh, the NASA and NOAA and the UN and all of these reports. Yeah. Are you on side with all of those findings? Like, there's nothing about that surprises you?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that climate change is happening and that it's primarily human caused. And I think the consensus on that is overwhelming. And now we're seeing evidence that it's happening perhaps even faster than we thought it was going to happen. I think the good news is that the mainstream Conservative parties, whether it's Andrew Scheer or Doug Ford, Jason Kenney, none of them have said that they deny the science of climate change. They've said that they want to reduce emissions, but they're not opting for the option that's probably the cheapest free market way to reduce emissions.
So what are they doing? Because I mean, when you see somebody in this day, it looks like the 1990s when Andrew Scheer stands in front of a gas tank and talks about, first thing I'll do is I'm going to scrap this carbon tax. That doesn't seem to be recognizing sort of the argument that is being made on the other side that it's done, that we've got to change. Well,
any tax that's a direct tax on consumers, a visible tax like the HST, is very unpopular, even though economists will say that's actually the best kind of tax to have. So you've got a disconnect between the politics and the economics of it. I mean, the Ontario government, the Saskatchewan government, the UCP platform in Alberta, they all have industrial carbon pricing, so they've accepted the idea of putting a carbon price on large industrial emitters, although some of them aren't calling it a carbon price. It's when you put a price on consumers that there's really the political difficulty. So I guess the question is are there alternative methods that can achieve reductions? And there are, but they tend to all be more expensive than a simple carbon price.
Such as cap and trade? I mean, is that because I'm looking now for because I think you want the leadership of the country, and the next leader of this country could be Andrew Scheer, a Conservative. You want him to have something that will actually tackle this. I think it might actually be good for him politically if he has something that is seen by environmentalists as a real plan. What is there that he could do, if not carbon pricing of the type?
The cap and trade is really another variation of carbon pricing. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think that's an alternative that many of them would look to. There are regulatory approaches, and a number of Conservative governments have brought in regulations. Stephen Harper brought in regulations on coal, increased the fuel economy standards. So there are things you can do on that side, increasing the fuel economy standards for cars, or having a low carbon fuel standard that the federal government is talking about, which I think the Ontario plan actually incorporates the federal low carbon fuel standard as part of their plan. Putting higher standards on buildings, requiring a certain percentage of renewable gas and natural gas. So there are a number of things you can do, but regulatory approaches tend to, in the end, be more expensive than a simple price mechanism.
You said that there's a disconnect between the politics, maybe, and the policies of going forward. Yeah. Do you have a sense that the public is connecting those more, that there is, because of these reports that we keep hearing, that they will want and expect something more, that maybe Conservatives aren't hearing that message yet, because they seem to be so far, they think they're succeeding with just a message, which is scrap this stuff and I'll get your vote.
Look, I think the public consensus on climate change is happening. It's real. People have to do something about it. Is getting stronger. I think the fight on carbon pricing has muddied the waters. So there are a lot of people say, well, I would like to do something about climate change, but I don't think a tax on gasoline is the way to go. Unfortunately, that probably is the way to go from an economic point of view, or at least part of the way to go. But if there are going to be alternatives, I think it's imperative that whether it's the Ford government or Andrew Scheer, they really have to put plans forward that actually can show where they're going to achieve reductions. So far, they're kind of halfway there, but they haven't really put forward comprehensive plans that could actually get anywhere near the 30% reduction target that Stephen Harper actually implemented.
Again, you were a policy advisor. You know that he's already kind of, in a sense, backed himself into a corner that Andrew Scheer cannot go forward with the carbon tax as it is. What is he waiting for, since the Liberals are also hitting back, saying, "Where's your plan? Where's your plan?"
Well, I think they don't want to create a target. Right now they see the Liberals creating a lot of difficulties for themselves politically, and they think they're on a winning issue on the carbon tax, so they don't want to create a plan of their own that creates a target. I suspect they will have something either before their platform or in their platform, but it seems that they want to come out later rather than sooner and not put a target on their backs.
Do you expect it will be something that you and people that have looked at this subject closely will say, well, that can work? Is there something workable?
I hope so. I hope that Andrew Scheer and other conservative governments across the country will come up with plans that are responsible and will be in line with the 30% reduction targets. Right now, based on what we saw from Ontario last fall, I'm not sure that they will actually be adequate plans, and I think it's important that that their plans are assessed pretty rigorously. I mean, I think right now Ontario's plan, they've got the industrial emitters covered, but that's only about 25% of the game. They're really doing very little on the other 75% of the emissions in Ontario.
You can go full bore because you're all in on this. But if you were in your old job and you were advising Andrew Scheer right now, what would be, given where he is, where he's positioned himself, and believing what you believe, what would be your advice to him?
Well, I think they should reaffirm the Paris reduction targets, the 30% targets. I know that they voted for that in the House last year, but they've been a little more ambiguous as to whether they're going to stick to that lately. I think they should keep the large emitter system, the output-based pricing system that the federal government has had, as part of its carbon pricing system. I think that is pretty much along the lines of what Ontario and Saskatchewan and the UCP are intending to do as well. So there's a kind of consensus on that. And then for the other areas, whether it's automobile emissions or building emissions, they're going to have to come up with some kind of regulations that will actually have to be pretty tough and biting, and that's where I think there's going to be the difficulty. Yeah,
I mean, you've got to fold consumers in on this as well, the average consumers. Mark Cameron, really great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Eric.